Hello and welcome to FPL Happy Hour, episode 1 of season 4, and we're live. I haven't said that in ages.
You haven't said
With
much in
myself,
ages, mate.
no, with myself, Sham, otherwise known as FPL Two Guys One Cup on Twitter, or the midget from Team South goalie. Um,
And I'm Rob, or or FPL Panda, or that's about it. No,
yeah,
I didn't get selected for Team South.
no, no. How are you, Rob? It's been a very long time.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, it's been a while. We struggled a bit to get the content going sort of at times last season, with all of the cancellations and with COVID and all of that. I think became a bit hard around Christmas time to sort of keep a roll going, so we didn't know what was going on half the time. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, and being consistent.
it's been good to sort of come back fresh. The last week's been really hectic with building up towards the Friday deadline. For me, but yeah, it's good to just sort of sit back and chat FPL rather than make thousands of spreadsheets and set up competitions with people and everything. So yeah, it's good to be back.
Nice. Well, so one of the things, oh, there's my mic gone. One of the things that we realised from last year was just kind of the consistency. Outside of the COVID stuff, both of us had like personal stuff to deal with and work commitments and that, and we're finding it really difficult to kind of be consistent. So one of the things we're doing this year is just going to be streaming once a week, and that's just going to be a live stream turned into a podcast. So we're aiming to do a live stream either on a Monday or Tuesday, but it's no set time every week. But usually it'll be on a Tuesday at around 7 or 8 o'clock. But we'll tweet that out closer to the time in terms of when we are planning to do it.
I mean, none of us are
And
playing
then
Tuesday nights in Europe, so
no, yeah, yeah. Um, and and we've got a slightly different agenda as well. It's not going to be today's agenda because it's pre-season, so today's is kind of just set for pre-season, and I'll talk you through today's agenda shortly. But going forward, our agenda is going to be kind of half FPL and half just general football chat. So it's going to be at about an hour, and we'll do half an hour of our FPL teams, any hot topics that are around. So, for example, for game week 2 for next week, it might be, should we switch from Kane to Haaland, for example, or things like that. It is kind of what will be on the hot topic. We'll be choosing our watch list like we did last year, so like ones to watch. And then the other half is going to be about general football chat. So talking a bit about my team, which is West Ham, and Rob's team, which is Man United. Anything going on in the club, anything outside of FPL. Transfers are still until the end of August, so we'll be talking a bit about that. So a little bit different, but that is our plan for today. Though we are going to be firstly going through what are we going through? Firstly, we're going to be talking about what we've learned from pre-season. So kind of 10 minutes on that. Anything that we've learned from there, our ones to watch. So we picked out a couple of players that we both like. We'll then talk a bit, 10 minutes on West Ham and United, what we like or don't like coming into the beginning of the season. And then 10 minutes on other teams. Spurs have done a lot of signings, for example, this year, what we think that they might be doing. Chelsea haven't hardly signed anyone. So what do we think Chelsea's going to happen? And then we'll go through our definitely not locked game week 1 squads, and then a Q&A. So if anyone's got any questions, we'll answer them afterwards. So yeah, that's a quick. We've got a few people in the chat as well, Rob. So we've got Forever QPR, Evening Gents, and FPL Glasto. Well, this is a nice surprise. Nice to have you back. And then my friend Brian says evening, and our trusted James is yes, the boys. So yeah,
evening
it's good
all.
to have you
Thanks for
guys
joining
in the
you all.
chat. So yeah, anything else you want to say, Rob, before we, I guess, start with what we've learned from pre-season?
No, let's just crack on. I think you basically said everything.
Yeah, I guess if you are not subscribed and you're watching live, please subscribe and like and comment and share and all of that stuff. It helps us grow, so that we'll really appreciate that. Let's then talk about what we've learned in pre-season, and I guess the best thing is what we're going to do is look at the top six clubs and just kind of do a few lines on if there's anything that we've learned from an FPL point of view or otherwise from those top six clubs and what they are. And then outside of those top six, once we've done them, just a couple of bits on any other teams that could be of note for FPL. So I guess let's start with City. Rob, have you learned anything from City for pre-season wise?
I mean, with City, it's hard to learn anything from them pre-season because of the way that they set up and how Guardiola rotates his sides. Anyway, but I think we know they're the team to beat this year. They're the champions. Um, they, I mean, it did go all the way last year, but like they're a lot like the signings they've made. They're stronger. I think the only worry maybe is maybe at the back with Laporte being injured. But like, they've signed the best striker in the world, haven't they? It's not
Yeah.
it's not going to be it's not a good thing for defenses of other teams. I think we're going to see them absolutely destroy some teams this season, as they did in the past. And like if you look at last year where they had no recognised real number nine striker, I mean they had Jesus there, but he played a lot of games out wide on the right. KDB kind of played in a sort of a false nine role with Foden sometimes, and it's scary. I think like if you look at City sort of 3, 4 years ago when Aguero was sort of in his pomp, that's what we're getting, but with a big number nine instead of a little number 10.
Yeah, so for me, I've learned a couple of things from pre-season. The first thing that I've learned is that I don't think that we can trust any Man City midfielders at the moment. I
Hmm.
don't think there's one midfielder. I think there's too much, you know, going to be too much rotation in there. Initially, I was looking at Grealish. Then we looked at Mahrez. Grealish and Mahrez both. I think Grealish came off, and then Mahrez came off. I think I think they might have both come off at 60 minutes on the weekend. I'm not. I'm not comfortable going with any Man City midfielders. I think the other thing is a lot of people were switching from Haaland to Kane after the Community Shield, and that horrendous miss. Fuck knows how he missed that. Um, but he got 1.5 xG against Liverpool, which shows me he's going to be hogging up a lot of the xG for Man City, and he will be converting those chances. He is a world-class striker. And he's getting into the opportunities to score. It's just about finding him. So I don't think that's changed my mind on Haaland. Whilst he's not in my squad, he wasn't in my squad before the Community Shield. So that kind of hasn't changed anything for me. So yeah, that's kind of City. Okay, let's go on to Liverpool. Anything that you've learned from pre-season or Liverpool?
They're the same. I think they're very much the same Liverpool, except now I think they've got an extra dimension in their attack with Darwin Núñez up front. I think they will start a lot of games with Firmino up front, just because the way that he can sort of switch out with the likes of Diaz and Salah, to allow them to come inside and stuff. Um, Especially at the sort of in the first few weeks of the season. I'm not saying Darwin Núñez isn't going to be a good asset at some point in this season. I just don't think at the start of the season is um, the time to jump on him. Um, I mean, funnily enough, he was very disappointing in a lot of the preseason up until is it their last preseason game, middle of
Yeah, he
last
scored 4
week,
goals.
where he just
Yeah,
went mental. um, but yeah, I still think Salah's the main man. There is, will he be still value? I think as long as Nunes isn't in the side, then I think his price is still great value. But I think when Nunes starts creeping in, that could be then the time to move off of him, and he's then another asset that you can use to go into the Liverpool attack. But I'm seeing a lot of teams with Salah, Diaz, or Trent, or Trent and Robbo. I don't think you can get Salah, Trent, and Robbo and have the balance in the rest of your team. So yeah, obviously Diaz is probably the best value for money in that team, as long as he continues that form he showed last year.
Yeah, see, I disagree a bit. I actually think Robbo's a better asset than Diaz, and that's what I've learned from the preseason personally. That Robbo's been quite threatening. Diaz has been really quiet in preseason. So that's why I'm starting with Robbo over Diaz. I think the other thing I've learned is Salah was really quiet over the weekend, yet he still got a goal and an assist,
Yeah.
or an assist for that first goal. So he would have got the equivalent of 11 or 12 FPL points on that game.
And he was
So
quiet.
yeah, right. I also think that Nunes is an option from game week 1 because he may not start against Fulham, but I'll
Oh,
take
he'll
half an
play.
hour against
Yeah, he'll
Fulham.
play.
So I think I don't hate squads with Nunes in, to be fair. So yeah, I think that's kind of what I've learned. Liverpool, Chelsea. Let's move on. Chelsea. What have we learned? We've learned that sounds like Raheem Sterling is probably their saving grace. I guess they haven't made any. Have they made any signings other than Sterling? I don't think so. Have they?
Koulibaly, big
Koulibaly,
centre
yeah.
back from Napoli. I think there's question marks over him. His injury record, sort of over the past 3 or 4 years, isn't great. I mean, there was times over the past couple of summers that he was linked with United um, to come in, and I think the injury record for him was something that concerned us. I'm just wondering how many games they're going to get with Thiago Silva and Koulibaly this season. I don't think it will be a lot um,
Yeah.
because of injuries and the strain of the season, etc. Especially once we move into September. I think next midweek is the only midweek till the World Cup that the teams playing in Europe uh, don't play in midweek. I think after next week,
Oh wow.
that's it, because the League Cup has been moved forward. Obviously, the Champions League, Europa League, the Conference League, all being squeezed into about a 6-week period, all of their group stages. And I think Chelsea are going to really suffer with this because, they're very weak at the back. I mean, they've got a great sort of we'll say back five, because you'll probably be Koulibaly, Silva, Azpilicueta, looks like he's staying now, Reece James, Chilwell. But then after that, I don't think they've got that depth there. Um, and there's a lot of like they're going to struggle with pace against them. Like anyone pacey running at those three, like Azpilicueta, Koulibaly, and Silva. Um, anyone running with pace or in behind them, they're not going to catch up. It's made me very wary of where I'm going, like with Chelsea assets. And then going forward, I'm not sure without a striker there. As you mentioned, Sterling's the sort of the forward signing. Um, yeah, do they need a striker? I think they probably do. I don't think Kai Havertz is a great player, but I'm not sure he's a number 9 Chelsea number 9 sort of player. If you look at the players they've
No,
had in the past.
yeah, no, I echo your thoughts on that. Um, I guess, makes me concerned of having Reece James.
Hmm.
That's why I haven't got Reece James in my side, because I'm concerned about the defense, and I think it's a wait and see, especially with the potentially early wild card. That's why I'm kind of wait and see on Chelsea. Let's move on to Spurs then, a side that have made loads of changes in terms of transfers rather than changes, and in depth as well, and they're looking really, really strong. What's your thoughts on Spurs?
I think out
Anything
of
you've learned in pre-season?
probably out of the whole league, they're the side that's strengthened the most. Conte sort of been quite ruthless in the transfer market, knew where he wanted to strengthen, has gone out there and done it. Yves Bissouma, I think it was a great signing in sort of that holding midfield role. It just gives their attack so much more freedom, and it allows the wing backs, like having him and Højbjerg there, will just allow the wing backs just to like get forward as much as possible. And I mean, it's the question mark though with the depth that they've got. Who are the starting wing backs going to be for Spurs? Because there's so many options now. I think there's about 6 potential players that have got filled sort of 2 roles in that side, and yeah, you don't know who they're going to be, and we'll obviously see more and have a more of an idea Saturday lunchtime when they play Southampton of who the first choice wing backs are. But then, even then, like we get into the stage of the season where there's the European games, because of the amount of running those wing backs are going to have to do, because it's a Conti side. Um,
Hmm.
there's going to be a rotation there as well. Like you can't see the likes of, well, Perisic isn't going to play 90 minutes week in, week out, twice a week, week in, week out. Doherty's not going to do that. Reguilon, Emerson Royale, um, Sessegnon, so many of them. Like none of them are going to be doing that week in, week out. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I think it kind of lessens their fullbacks as options. I know Perisic when he came in, when the game was released, and he was in a lot of teams, and that's dropped quite significantly now. Unless he suddenly gets deployed as a winger rather than a wing back.
Yeah, I've started with Perisic just simply because I think he will start the first game against Southampton, so I think it's worth a shot. And I think he is a 15-point waiting to happen, or potentially a 1 point, similar to Reece James, but I don't trust Chelsea's defence, as I said. So, yep, that's kind of Spurs. Well, let's move on to Arsenal then. The team looking one of the best, if not the best, in the league pre-season wise in friendlies. I know we don't want to take friendlies. We should take friendlies with a pinch of salt, but just the way that they're playing and their cohesion, Jesus scoring a ridiculous amount of goals, Saka playing well, Martinelli, all of them kind of really doing well. And I think that I've learned from Arsenal this season, in pre-season, is you definitely have to have Jesus regardless of his ownership. I think definitely the highest that I've ever seen, 70%, I think he was at the moment. And I think you probably want another attacker potentially to go in there. And when I go to my draft, you'll kind of see I'm flirting between Martinelli as the second option. But yeah, I think Arsenal have got the best start as well, and you definitely want to have at least 2 of those assets. Is kind of my thoughts. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, similar thoughts attacking wise of Arsenal. My concerns with them are defensively still. Um, yeah, I don't think they've strengthened enough at the back to warrant sort of paying the sort of money like Ramsdale's 5 million. Why would I go Ramsdale? I can pay point 0.5 more and have Edison or Allison. Like that's and be guaranteed a lot more clean sheets, etc. Or I can spend 4.4 point 0.5 less and spend 4.5 million on a Raya or Sanchez, and pick up the save points, and the odd clean sheet, and probably a similar amount of clean sheets that Arsenal are going to get. So defensively, I'm not too sure on them, but attacking wise, it's but again, it's knowing who's going to start? I think, yeah, Jesus is going to start every game. I think it would be like having an £8 million asset playing for a top side as their number 9, starting every week is like it's a must have, and that's what is shown in his ownership. Saka as well, I think, is nailed in that side. Odegaard will probably be first choice in that number 10 role, which he performed really well, especially in the second half of last season. And I think he's been had the captain's armband a few weeks as well, which kind of that sort of cements him even more. It's that left side that I'm not too sure of. Like Martinelli and Smith Rowe shared it a lot last season. It's where it's picking sort of the right side of the right player for that left side position, because you preferably want the player that starts every week. Although, as we've said before with other assets, we know with this new five sub rule that we're going to see a lot more changes sort of around the hour mark to bring on fresh legs. And yeah, like Smith Rowe to Martinelli or vice versa is going to be one of those sort of substitutes we'd see. And yeah, it's no harm having one of them and them not starting. You know, they're probably going to get 20 minutes to half an hour as long as they're on the bench.
Right, and then the final team in the top 6 to talk about is United. And Rob, I'll let you deal with this one.
Well, we're going to obviously talk a bit more about United, but we'll just talk about the pre-season. Quietly
I guess let's
impressed.
just talk from an FPL point of view, what we've learned if there's in terms of FPL options, and then we'll talk about outside of FPL once in a bit more
Quietly
detail after.
impressed with them in pre-season. I think they've taken to the play style that Eric Ten Hag has brought in quite well. I think the assets that stand out are Diogo Dalot at 4.5 million. He'll be playing at right back during pre-season, getting forward a lot, sort of linking up with Sancho a lot. I think he got a couple of assists as well through pre-season. So yeah, I really like him at 4.5 million. Out of the rest of them, I think Sancho maybe paying a bit too much, maybe 0.5 too much. But Rashford definitely interests me because of his price point, and we know that at times in the season he'll be playing sort of up front rather than as a winger, and when the ball gets played sort of down the right hand side, he comes right in and almost is on the sort of towards the penalty spot. He comes in like that far inside. So I think I like him at his value. Martial interests me, but I think it's sort of very much dependent on the future of Cristiano Ronaldo. Personally, I think I kind of do want that sort of that potential move maybe to happen, because I think Martial has got a point to prove, and during pre-season he showed it. But yeah, until we know, and I don't think we're going to know until deadline day whether Martial's going to be an option or not, because he'll start on Sunday, but that doesn't guarantee anything moving forward, because he'll only start on Sunday because Ronaldo's had 45 minutes of football in the last 3 months.
Okie doke. So that's kind of the top 6 covered, and the reason why we focus on the top 6, and I think it's an important point to make, is the FPL pricing has meant that it is a lot more affordable to have the top players in your side. You could fill all 11 of your starting 11 from the top 6, and most will have at least 9. So my advice is, if you've got 7 or 8, 8 maybe is okay, but if you've got 7 or less, you need to try and put some more of those top 6. And they're top 6 for the reason, because they're the best sides. And if FPL is allowing you to have the better players in, you should take the opportunity to do so. I guess outside of the top 6, Rob, are there any like 1 or 2 players that you've seen that is worth potentially putting
I mean, we've seen in the sort of first,
in your
we've seen in sort of over the sort of first
squad
3 or 4
based on
games. The first 3 or 4 games, we've got Villa have some great fixtures. The likes of Watkins, Ings, and Leon Bailey, good. I think are sort of definitely ones to watch. All have performed fairly well in pre-season. Matty Cash as well, and Luca Dean. Um, they're the ones sort of that really stand out elsewhere. Um, if you like looking at the fixtures coming up, etc. Um, I'm not. I didn't watch enough of pre-season from um, a lot of the sort of mid-table to low-end sides um, to really get a feel for much of them. Leicester concern me at the moment massively with the sale of Kasper Schmeichel today. So I'm not sure.
Has he gone now?
Yeah, he's got a medical in Nice tomorrow.
Oh
Um,
wow, I didn't know that.
so I mean, yeah, Danny Ward at 4 million. But it looks like
Yeah,
Wesley Fofana is also on his way out. Yeah, a
they're in trouble,
defense
aren't they?
a defense minus Fofana and Schmeichel. I don't think I'm going even at 4 million. I'm not starting Danny Ward in any games, am I?
Yeah,
I'd rather have
yeah.
a rotating, pay the extra point 0.5 and have a rotating pairing if that's where I'm going. I mean, if you're paying 5 or 5.5 million, yeah, you I think you get Danny Ward in as your backup sub keeper, but that's all he is. You'd never play him because you're investing 5.5 in a goalkeeper. You play them week in, week out.
Okie doke. Right. So let's now move on to our next subject, and that is our watch list. So let's spend a few minutes on players that we've chosen, Rob. 2 of yours and 2 of mine. We've got the stats up from last season, but we're not going to talk through the stats because it's kind of irrelevant. For example, Martial, he didn't play a lot of last season, so the stats are kind of relevant. But we're just going to talk about why we put them as a watch list and what are we waiting for to see. So I'll go first. So I've picked Martial and Bailey for my 2, and Bailey's had a really good pre-season. He hadn't really figured much a lot of last season due to an injury. But they spent quite a lot of money on him. I think it was like 17, 18 million from what I remember, spending that. He had an XG in the German league of 0.5 XGI per game. That's kind of goals and assists. So, good showing the fact that he can deliver and score and assist. And pre-season, he's done really, really well. I think one of the comments that Jared made at the beginning, like maybe I think about a week or so ago, before his last game, saying that he's pushing for that starting 11 and wants to start. So I think he'll be a really good asset to watch. Whether or not you want to start with him or not, that's up to you. But they've got a really good set of 3 or 4 games. I think they've got 3 out of 4 games are really favourable. So I think it's worth starting him. The obvious problem with him, well, you've got 2 main problems. The first is there's no guarantee that he starts. But I think if he is starting, he's a really good option. He's been playing, he's in that kind of wide forward position, but he's been playing in a kind of front 2 when they're attacking, apparently, from what I've read from Villa fans. The other concern is if he isn't starting, where do you go from 5 million? There's not a lot of other 5 million options. So that's the only other concerns. But for me, I think it's worth starting him. I'm going to be starting him in my side as we stand now. He is. So that's kind of Leon Bailey. Martial, you spoke earlier about United and how good you've been looking. And I think the only caveat with this is Ronaldo. I think for at least the first 3 or 4 games, Martial will start, but you never know if when this Ronaldo issue is going to get sorted. If he comes on, it's kind of a transfer waiting to happen from a Martial point of view coming out. So it is a wait and watch and see. I don't think I'll be starting him personally, but I will be seeing what happened with the Ronaldo situation, and if Ronaldo ends up making a move, a 7 million United forward that looks in a very attacking side. This United side to me look like they can score 2, 3, 4 goals, but they will also concede 1 or 2 a game, right?
Or
So
3 or 4.
yeah, yeah, that's why Dallo for me isn't a great option, because I think you'll concede a lot, but I think you'll also score quite a lot as well. So yeah, those are the kind of two watch players for me. Whether or not you want to start them both is up to you, but I'd definitely keep them on your radar.
Cool. Right. Yeah. So my two. Every year every other year we see Fulham come up, and we all tell ourselves, no, not again, not Alexander Mitrovic. But um, they're a different side now than a much different side now than they were 2 years ago under Scott Parker. This Fulham side last year in the Championship just blew teams away because the way that they set up plays into Mitrovic's strengths very much so. Whereas 2 years ago under Scott Parker, it really didn't play into Mitrovic's strengths, and he cut a very frustrated figure for much of the season because he struggled to fit into the way they played. Um, I think at his price, 6.5, like Martial is. I mean, I think Martial's would be better value if he's starting every game. But Mitrovic, I think, will start every game he is available. Um, he's probably a good option to have at certain points in the season. I think with Fulham's start to the season, like first few weeks are not great for Fulham. Like Liverpool at home, Wolves away, Brentford at home, Arsenal away. Like the first 7 game weeks are pretty awful. But then game week 8, they've got Forest. Um, that means you've got sort of plenty of time to sort of absorb them. I wouldn't like go at the end of that sort of run of 7 games, if he's only got 1 goal in those 7 games, I won't ditch him off because they are tougher fixtures. But if he's getting the chances or making sort of the right moves to get towards having those chances, then he could definitely be an option if you were going for like a game week 8 wild card. He could be someone that you could bring in and then rotate out for someone else. Like my other player that I have on the watch list, and that is Brian Mbeumo. Um, Brentford, towards the end of last season, playing a lot better football. I mean, the acquisition of Christian Eriksen in January, I think, just gave him that creativity coming from the midfield that sparked Mbeumo and Tony sort of into life a bit more. We saw them sort of getting a lot more returns wise than they were before Christmas. Now, what interests me with him, I mean, it's more the news that I read yesterday. That it looks like they're going to they're in the running to sign Mikael Damsgaard from Sampdoria, who we will remember from the Euros last year as the young number 10 for Denmark. Well, he wasn't the number 10. He played in that role when after the incident with Christian Eriksen. And he was brilliant, brilliant little creative player, brilliant on set pieces, etc. And I think that would then free up Mbeumo to sort of become a real partner to Tony up front. So I really like him at 6 million. I mean, you're saving. You could go to Tony and have 7, but he's $1 million more. I think you're saving $1 million for just a slightly sort of lesser asset. I don't think there's like $1 million gap in the potential returns with their price. I think it's probably maybe a 0.5. So I think you're getting a bit of value out of him. And with Brentford's sort of opening fixtures, yeah, like Leicester away, Man United at home, tough. Well, Leicester away might not be a tough fixture at the weekend. Then obviously Man United at home, don't know whether that's a tough fixture either. But then Fulham, Everton, Palace, Leeds, Southampton, all decent fixtures, and that takes you quite nicely into, again, like I said, a game week 8 wild card, which seems to be what a lot of people are looking towards at the moment, around sort of game week 8. Obviously, with the enforced wildcard / overhaul, if that's what you want to call it, in game week 16, or between game week 16 and 17 for the World Cup. So yeah, it's I think with that early wildcard, it does make it easier to take some gambles on assets like Mbeumo, on Bailey, maybe on Mitrovic, whoever, on Rashford, Martial, all of these players, because it allows, like, you don't have to go, oh, once I get that player, I've got him for 15 weeks. Like, you've got this player, the most at worst you've got them for is sort of 6 or 7 weeks, because you can afford to wildcard that much earlier than in previous seasons.
Indeed. Right. So let's move away now for a little bit away from FPL chat. Let's talk about our own teams, West Ham and Man United, and how we think, not necessarily from an FPL point of view, just overall football, how we think they've done in pre-season, or just how we think they're looking like for the beginning of the season, and any FPL assets we can mention as well. I'll talk about West Ham first. So we've had... I would say let's transfers wise. So we signed Aguerd, who's a centre back from Rennes, for 25 million. Never been injured. Never had any big injury record.
You said that now.
In pre-season, he's now been injured until December. So that's such a great signing for us. And then within a few weeks of signing him, he gets injured until December. So that wasn't a great start. It now means we were going to sell Issa Diop, but now we can't, because Dawson's also carrying a bit of a knock. Ogbon has just come back from a long-term injury. So it looks like Diop is probably going to start the beginning of the season with Diop and Zuma. And I think against City we'll probably play 5 at the back. So I imagine Cresswell will probably play left centre back, and then Johnson will play on the left as a left wing back, and Sifal as right wing back. We also signed Flynn Downs, who's kind of seen as the same sort of player as Declan Rice, and I think we've signed him as when we get rid of Declan Rice, because he will probably go next summer, as a kind of a fill-in for him. So I think he's kind of his understudy. Incidentally, across Europe, Declan Rice had a 91% pass completion rate last season, which is second in Europe, and Flynn Downs got 93%, which was first. So same sort of mold as Declan Rice. We then got our striker Skamaka from Sassuolo. Looks to be a decent player. Don't know too much about him, but from the YouTube clips, he looks amazing. Just like anyone else looks amazing on the YouTube clips. So I don't know.
Amazing on YouTube.
I know, I know. I mean, I looked amazing on my YouTube clips for game week 39. So, yeah, let's see how he does. And I think we're looking to sign another 2 to 3 more players. So pre-season wise, I don't think we've had the best pre-season, but it's really difficult to tell from the people that I know that have gone to see the matches have kind of said we look sluggish, not on it, lack of creativity. I don't think we got a single win. I think maybe one win. I think we got. I think that was against Ipswich, possibly. The rest were all draws. So draw against Luton, draw against Lawns, and then we lost to Rangers as well. So bit of a disappointing pre-season. Bowen hasn't scored in pre-season. He hasn't been looking sharp from what I've read. I've watched a bit of the pre-season. He didn't look on it. So I'm a bit concerned about him at the beginning of this season. But I think from a FPL point of view, West Ham are a wait and see. Definitely, I wouldn't be investing in them at the moment. We haven't got the Grace fixtures wrong anyway for the first kind of 4 or 5 games. So they are a wait and see. And obviously, I'm a West Ham season ticket holder, so I'll be going to see them every week at home. So I'll be kind of reporting back on this podcast and kind of relaying my thoughts on if that's changed. And I hope it does change. But at the moment, I'm not the most optimistic going into the beginning of the season based on what I've seen and the transfer we made so far.
Yeah, I mean, with
So yeah,
West Ham, because they have, I mean, after obviously play City at the weekend, but then sort of game weeks 2, 3, 4. There's some decent fixtures there. I mean, Forest away, Brighton at home,
yeah.
Villa away. Is it? I mean, is it because of the bad, like poor pre-season that it's sort of turned us off? Like the likes of Bowen, Antonio, Soufal, like the other. I mean, just like from a fantasy point of view, is that why? Um, because like normally, I mean,
So I haven't seen anything in pre-season personally that makes me think, yeah, go and buy these assets. There hasn't been that team performance that's made me think we're on form, we're playing well like we did last season. I have not seen that. Um, I know pre-season's all about fitness and stuff like that, but I haven't seen anything that's made me think you should go out and buy them. I guess we'll see after the City game. We gave City a game, last game of last season, 2-2. We were 2-0 up. We drew 2-2. So I'll be able to tell after the first game whether or not we're on it and whether or not we've got potential, because those 3 fixtures are decent. But then after that, you've got Spurs and Chelsea.
yeah,
So 2 tough games after that 3 run of fixtures. But if you're wildcarding in 5, potentially you could bring in a Bowen in game week 2, but I won't know until that City game and
yeah.
whether or
I
not
mean,
we're playing well.
do we think that the exploits of last season, with that like great run in Europe, and then players like Jarrod Bowen, then going into the England side, playing well into the summer. I think when was the last England game? Was it late June, or mid-June? The last
Yeah,
England game. Do you think that might be something to do with why we're getting sort of the sluggish performances from him in particular?
maybe it's possible. I don't know. It could just be in pre-season they don't want to exert themselves too much. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
difficult
for a
to
lot of
tell.
sides, it's
We'll
hard
know a
to.
lot after the City game.
Yeah, for a lot of sides, I mean, you can tell they know it's a friendly sometimes. Um, Sort of very lackluster at times. But yeah, they could
Whereas
be a completely
you kind
different
of, just
side,
to give
couldn't
you an
they, Sunday?
example, just to give you an example about pre-season, United beat Liverpool 4-0, right? But then they played City the other day, and that was not what you would class a pre-season friendly. They went at it at each other. If I was watching that game and I didn't know it was a pre-season friendly, I definitely wouldn't have thought it was a pre-season friendly, right? They went at it with each other, so it's difficult to tell, I think.
Yeah.
Let's hear about a little bit about United.
As I said earlier, I think Ten Hag's come in, and you can see. I mean, we could see in that Liverpool game at times, the first pre-season game, that there's been a lot of um, work done on the training pitch about um, when you like first of all winning the ball and winning it quickly. Like they're pressing so high up the pitch, and really pressing. Like seeing Martial actually run to go and get a ball, um, like off someone, and put someone under pressure. It was shocking, and that's why I said earlier that I think he's got a bit of a point to prove. Um, but yeah, not only doing that, but then once they got the ball, moving it quickly and with some sort of purpose, whereas before there was there hasn't been that purpose there. And I think that's only going to get better when uh, you know, with like the likes of Ericsson coming in, someone that can assist with that transition, because he's not. I don't think in this United side he's been brought in to play as a number 10. Bruno's a number 10. I think he's been brought in to play in a pivot, like so when he was playing under Conte at Inter, um, he was very much playing in this pivot, where the DM wins the ball or the centre backs win the ball. They give it to him and he moves it forward and then gives it to the 10 or the 9, or out wide. But he can also, we've seen Bruno playing that sort of role as well at times. So I think between him and Bruno, this is going to be this little rotation on um, in that sort of number 6 role that, I mean, in the past, we've seen players like Paul Pogba asked to play this role, and he hasn't been able to, because whether it's just his attitude or whatever, he just hasn't been able to perform. Whereas I think Ericsson is able to do that. The only problem is with that is you can only play one holding midfielder, and at the moment we don't have a holding midfielder that can play by themselves in that role. I think with Fred and McSauce or McTominay, um, I think they need a partner to be able to play that role, and I think this is why this deal with for Frankie De Jong, I think is so vital to how Ten Hag wants to set the side up for the season. I think it could be it'll be the sort of deal that I think is the difference between top 4 and not top 4, because I think he's a good enough DM to be able to play that role by himself, and by doing that, it just frees up so much more um, attacking options. Um, I think then the other thing to talk about is Ronaldo. Um, Now I never thought I'd get to the day where I said I don't think Ronaldo should be at the sort of in the team anymore, not at the club anymore, but in the team anymore. Um, I think that his style of play just does not suit the side. Now, I can't say um, it's bad for the side. I've seen people like some people saying, "Oh, if Ronaldo wasn't there, United would have finished top 4 last year." Ronaldo wasn't there and scored the 17 goals that he did. We could have been fighting relegation last season. We wouldn't have made it out of the groups in the Champions League, etc. So I don't really buy that view on it, and we don't know how the season would have panned out if he wasn't there. Um, what would have happened. So, but on the other hand, if Ten Hag has got the bottle and can keep him but not play him, and use him as sort of like someone that you bring on at like half an hour to go, either to sort of shore up the up front maybe. I'm not sure if that would work with Ronaldo because he doesn't press, like historically doesn't press. We saw it a few times last year. But if we're chasing a game and we need a goal, I don't think there's any player in the world you'd rather bring on if you needed a goal. We're 1-0 down, or it's 1-1 with 20 minutes to go. Like, is there anyone apart from Messi, Haaland, that you'd want to bring on?
No.
So
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer?
Solskjaer, I'll take Solskjaer 1-0 down. Yeah, it's a tough one. I think for the betterment of the side, is that even a word? I think it is time to let Ronaldo move on. But then where's he going to go? Who's going to take him? We've seen Bayern turn around and say, no, it doesn't fit our ethos to sign a player £500,000 a week. We've seen Real dip their head in and go, no thanks. We see Atletico dip their head in, no thanks. PSG haven't really sort of made any moves towards it. Other than sort of these sort of clubs, I can't see anyone unless he goes back to Italy. Like, but yeah, again, will they? I don't know. So yeah, until that's sorted out, I'm not too sure attacking wise. But I think yeah, the big turning point could be if we can get this Frankie De Jong deal over the line, and I think it's close. Um, the fact that his agent and he have in the last few weeks said he doesn't want to leave. He has to say that. If he wants £17 million he's owed, if he wants that £17 million, he has to want to stay at the club. He needs Barca to want to sell him, and at some point they're going to have to come out and put him up for sale because they can't register anyone. And it's like they were saying weeks ago how they like Xavi was saying how he's likely to be played as a centre half. They went and signed Koundé as a centre half, so they've got PK and Koundé as their sort of first choice centre halves. Like, where does Frankie De Jong fit into that Barca side? He doesn't. So they'll sell him. They have to. Otherwise, none of these new players. There's going to be a lot of disappointed Barca players sitting there. Well, they won't be disappointed if they're collecting €500,000 every week. But they're not going to be playing any football because they're not going to be registered to the league. And in a World Cup year, all of the top players need to be playing, especially when you're not getting sort of a warm up into the World Cup. Your warm up is going to be your club games. So yeah, these players need to be playing. No, like, can you imagine Poland going into the World Cup if Lewandowski hasn't played for 6 weeks since the last Poland game? Like, yeah, it would be
Yeah, the
like
struggle.
it's the same for a lot of these players. Frankie De Jong is definitely one of them. So I think I'd really hope we can get it done in the next couple of weeks.
Okie doke. We've run a bit over time with regards to talking about other clubs, so we'll just move on to our game week 1 drafts, Rob, for this week. So let's now switch back to FPL and see what our definitely not locked sides are looking like. Do you want to bring up mine first, and I'll kind of talk through it?
Yep, there you go.
Right, so this is kind of what I've got so far, and bear in mind I've got 1.5 in the bank. There's a couple of positions that I'm not sure about, not locked in for, so that's why I've kind of left that money in the bank. So I've got Ramsdale in goal, with Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, Cancelo, and Perisic in defence. In midfield, I've got Salah, Bailey, Neto, Rashford, Kane, and Jesus. So 9 of my starting 11 from the top 6. We've then got Ward, um, Andreas, Pereira, Nico Williams, and Archer in the subs bench. So, kind of my dilemmas at the moment is I want Martinelli, but I also want Bailey and Neto. A lot of people have got Bailey or Neto. I actually really like both of them to start the season. Have both of them starting. Sure, there's rotation risks on Bailey, but then I've got Andreas and Nico Williams who are pretty much definite starters. And even if he comes on in the last 20 minutes, I don't mind that. As we spoke about, we've got the first 3 or 4 fixtures for Villa are good. They're playing a Bournemouth side that basically Scott Parker has come out and said are shit, essentially.
Didn't they have
Yeah, he's
like?
basically come out and said, "I've got no defenders."
Didn't they have a friendly at
They've
the
got
weekend?
3 fit centre back.
And like with like all the friendlies over the summer, you've seen